So in terms of opportunity, click it again, unless I've, yay, okay, so there's $120 million over 5 years from the National Science Foundation for teacher education and support for teachers in computer science. There was a Dear Colleague letter issued on that a few months ago. That money is going to continue to roll out over the next 4 years. The NSF has established a national listserv for teachers, and I'm going to share all these links, so don't write them down. There is a community online. It's called CS10K right now. It's going to change to CS for All shortly. That is a community of practice that teachers can join to talk to each other about this work. There's some courses that I've mentioned, APCS Principles, Exploring Computer Science, Bootstrap, and there's a few others that are research-based, vetted, funded by the NSF, done by PhD education researchers that you can take. You can get that curriculum, you can work with those providers and have that in your schools. You don't have to create curriculum from scratch. There's also a new project with NSF and the Infosys Foundation and Donors Choose, where any teacher who goes online and asks, puts up a project on Donors Choose for professional development in computer science, Donors Choose will, Infosys will match it 100%. So if you need $1,000, you put up, you raise 500 from your community, Infosys will match it. So I know there are 2 Oregon schools on the list right now, so if anyone in here is willing to write a check, it'll be matched 100% by, one of them is Albany, and I think the other was Eugene. So somebody go on to Donors Choose and fund those 2 programs, please, because then they'll get their PD paid for. So any school districts or teachers can start signing up for that funding stream. So the Department of Education is also a big partner in Computer Science for All. They've done 3 critical things. Now, the Department of Education, if the money comes through from Congress, they'll be the ones administering that money. But what they've done right now is, 1, clarify through a Dear Colleague letter all of the different funding streams and ways that computer science can be funded, and made it clear to everyone so you don't get the top-down problems that computer science is part of STEM and that any funding allocated for STEM can be used for computer science education. So there's some clarifications in that Dear Colleague letter. So you can print that out, and if you have any trouble at your district or anywhere in your state level, you can say this has been guidance from the Department of Ed. The other is the I3 grants. You have a very short period of time to apply for this, but there's $100 million. The grants, I think, start around $2 to $3 million. And those are based on their tiered evidence grants, so the more evidence your project has behind it, the more money you get. And those have STEM and CS as a priority. Those are innovation grants for underserved communities. And that's July 15th, you gotta get those in, but we're really pushing everyone to get as many CS-related grants into that pool as possible. And there's a reason for that. So people don't allocate resources when they don't perceive demand, right? So if every application you're getting is coming from biology, then you're like, well, there's all this demand for biology, we need to allocate more money to biology, right? So if we get a lot of applications out of the gate for CS, the people in charge are gonna go, oh, we're gonna have to allocate some more resources to CS. So there's a strategy behind this. So please consider that process. And then there was a Dear Colleague letter issued on guidance around equity in Title IX in CTE programs. So many of the CTE programs out there, the girls are in the nursing and the pre-med stuff and the dental hygienist stuff, and the boys are in the tech and the pre-engineering stuff. So there's been some strong guidance from the Department of Education on the fact that this is a Title IX issue and girls are not included in the CTE programs that are technical. And then boys are not included in the nursing. I think that is critical. Okay, so what I want you to do, I want you to don't wait, lead. So we, Oregon, have a history of leadership, and there is an opportunity to step up as a state. I'd love to see a big declaration of CS for Oregon. I'd love to see movement among all the community partners. You have a great ecosystem here to move fast in this state. Industry, we have a couple of major opportunities. One is we need people to fund teacher education. That is the most critical piece, is that kids go to a school where they can actually take a computer science class. And one of the most tragic things is when we put all this money into extracurricular programs and then they go back to a school with zero. They need the complete wraparound of both the extracurricular and the in-school experiences that support a kid's engagement long-term. And we need to influence your policymakers, whether it's your state or your national representatives, that this is a priority for funding, whether it's state funding or national funding. So industry people have a lot of pull in that way. Share your accomplishments. So one of the things that I can do from the White House is I can elevate the conversation about things. So I'm going to be celebrating the accomplishments related to CS for All at the anniversary of 6 months, which will be July 30th. So I would like to hear, we have done X. Oregon has trained X number of teachers. Oregon has gotten this grant. This organization, that organization, I'm going to have a big push around all the accomplishments. So you can email those to me by, I think I said, July 5th, and very concise, right? So it needs to be concise and you know, clear, measurable, with X plus Y equals Z kind of situation. You can also make a commitment. So when we do things at the White House, we have commitments from communities that we can elevate, and we have events. So we're going to push for more CS commitments around the fall for back to school. So until August 19th, the commitment form is open, and any organization, whether it's a school district or a state or a partnership, can make a commitment. So here's a hypothetical commitment for the state of Oregon, that a coalition of companies come together to fund a CS teacher to be trained in every single school in the state by the end of 2017. There you go. So make that happen and put it in the form, and then the parties that are involved will be potentially invited to celebrate that at the White House. Can't guarantee anything, but commitments and commitment makers, and you've been, so you know what it's like. There's an opportunity to use that voice, that national voice, to elevate things that are great so that other states can copy them. So we want other states to copy Oregon, which means Oregon needs to get out and lead. And you can go one more click there. I think you're at the end. Oh, my foolish, I tried to turn off the broadband or whatever it's doing. I have not used a PC in like 15 years, so this is also an issue. Okay, in any case, the next slide is really just my contact information. So I'm trying to get to, I can't get the cursor for some reason. Oh, okay, well, frustrating. Anyway, I'm gonna share this show so that everybody has my email address and my other information on how you can reach us. But we are definitely interested in seeing, yay, okay, one more then. There you go, there's my contact information. Seeing movement and excitement from the states and from the regions. There's such a great ecosystem here. It's just a really great ecosystem of people and partners and tech companies, and you know, commitments can be big and small. You know, it can be, we're going to train this many teachers by this time, or it can be, you know, huge, the state of Oregon is going to commit to computer science for all students. So obviously I like the bigger is better, but all commitments are considered. Do I have any time for questions?
We'll give you time.
Okay, I don't know what time it is, so does anyone have a burning question? Yes, we get sniffed by dogs every time we go in the building. Yes.
On the items of the sort of records to date that you were presenting, I'm curious if you had any more information on how those cities like New York and Chicago are planning to actually deliver on that promise to require computer science when, while we're doing great, we don't have enough educators.
Right, nobody has enough educators, right? That's the critical piece here, is there are not enough teachers to do this work. And one of the things that I think is really important to get out to the folks in industry, they really don't have an understanding of the fact that there are literally virtually no teachers in the schools, no classes being taught, and that that's a huge void that needs to be filled, and they can simply, you know, write a check to train that teacher. Like that needs to happen immediately. So I think the best strategy is to connect up your core team with the core team for Chicago or Arkansas or New York, so you can talk to them directly. And as we grow this movement, the goal is to have sort of some like entities and states to be able to talk to each other and kind of share. In some cases, you know, with Chicago, they said, we're gonna do this, and now they're figuring it out. So it's hard. It is not an easy thing to do. New York, actually, their CS for All work predated CS for All from the White House. So they came together a couple of years ago and made a commitment to get CS into all their schools. And if you think about the size of the New York City public school system, it's just an enormous thing to fix. And so they formed a group called CSNYC that sort of, I would compare it to being the conductor of an orchestra. They kind of conduct all the different things that are happening. They're not doers, they don't train teachers, but they bring in the right people, and they raise money to make it all happen. They're fortunate that it's New York, you know, they have access to a lot of capital. So there's gotta be different models for how this works. You guys have a really great head start. And better. You have $750,000 to get you off the ground, which is fantastic. But I would recommend you take that kernel of what you've started and you use that as a leverage point. You say to your funders and your partners, we need your help to massively scale this up and leverage all this. We're building an infrastructure, we're figuring out how to do it. We need 5 times as much money to train all these people. And I think also standards are underway, certifications are underway. In the short term, we need to take the teachers that are in the schools. So are there any people here from like math teaching, physics teaching, right? So there are other teachers in the schools. I've even heard of English teachers, librarians being trained to do these kinds of courses. There's a wonderful curriculum called Bootstrap that's situated inside algebra. So it doesn't add head count, it doesn't cost you an additional teacher, and it supports algebra. So there's some creative ways to do this to get a running start on it, because it's gonna be a while before we have a pre-service teacher pipeline, before we have the slot in the agenda for a full complement of computer science classes. And one of the things that you have to kind of back up on is there's all kinds of like super person stories. Oh, this kid just came in, took APCS, and now he's got a job on Facebook, and he's, you know, didn't even go to college. Amazing, amazing, amazing. That's a tiny percentage. That's like the John Elway of computing kind of story. But the reality is there's a lot of jobs, a lot of opportunity for people at all different levels. You don't have to be a genius to do this. And so that whole message around, we need to start celebrating the opportunity and this is a skill that you can practice and learn, as opposed to the Wunderkind superstar stories that get told a lot of the time. I'm okay with Wunderkind teacher stories, those are cool. But not the kids. One of my students, Jaden, did a project in a summer institute at MIT on the image of women in movies and TV in technology, and her hypothesis was that, you know how on all the shows, like on NCIS and stuff, the woman who's in tech is like kind of gothy and like edgy and has that kind of alternative look. And her hypothesis was that for middle school girls, that image was kind of off-putting. That wasn't necessarily the kind of woman I wanted to become. That didn't turn out to be the finding. The finding that number one thing that kept girls at middle school from considering that pathway was they perceived those women to have started at 9 and that they were too far behind as middle schoolers to make it. Okay? So careful with the Wunderkind stories, because what those stories tell kids is that that they've already missed the boat. And the other piece of that is that, like, you know, you're not born a lawyer, right? But you're expected to be sort of born an engineer. We talk like that all the time. He's an engineer guy, he's a network guy, and we have all this language in the way we talk, the way we communicate, that perpetuates this sort of glass slipper of who is the person that's in that role. And so I think it's critical to flip the script on that. And one of the things like if I win the TED Prize or something someday and I get millions of dollars to do whatever I want, one of the things I want to do is a whole campaign around math, because you would never in a million years sit down at a restaurant and be like, read me this menu I can't read, right? That's embarrassing. You would never publicly declare and laugh about your inability to read. But parents, people, TV hosts, all the time, like, oh, I can't do the check, or I'm no good at math, math's not my thing. Yeah, if you need figure out 30% off something you're buying, you can do math. Everybody can do basic math, everybody does it all the time. But we throw it out there like it's no big deal. And I actually heard, you know, the horrible like public radio pledge drive that you sit through for about 3 weeks, every 3 weeks. They were on the radio and they're like, we just need 10 more pledgers to give this, oh, I can't figure out that math. Like, really? You're on Colorado Public Radio and you're telling me you can't do the basic math of, you know, $90 times 10 or whatever the number was, but that message to our kids of the innate ability of being technical. There are people, obviously, you know, I would argue that Alicia Keys is a musical genius. Possible Mozart, though he had a very driven father, but possible lots of people have been musical geniuses. That does not stop millions of people from learning the music. So I think we need to, you know, check ourselves on the narrative there and really focus on the growth piece of this and the practice piece of this. And are you going to, you know, be the top person that builds the app that, you know, disrupts everything? Maybe. Are you going to be a well-employed person that has a home and has a secure future and contributes to your local community? That's good too. And so just keep those things in mind as you're spreading the glory and the stories of computer science education. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth, and you can just pass the word to Barack that we fixed his computer. Donald also texted me earlier, and I was wrong. I said it was. He said it was actually tremendous, not ridiculous. But this was awesome. We heard it right from the top today about funding, about opportunities. OCSTA can tap into the resources just described. Very exciting. Thank you, Mentor, for hosting us today. Eric, great job. It was great facility. OCSTA.org will have some of these resources that you saw here this morning. But leave you with, well, folks, again, most of us are leading this organization, our teachers, with a day job. And how about if someone might know a grant writer that we could borrow for a couple of years? Yes. Because the resources appear to be there. That would be awesome. So, leveraging the assets. Thank you, Mark, for really bringing that to the forefront here, and that's what we hope to do. There will be another symposium coming to an email near you in the future, because this appeared to be a success this morning. Speaking of emails, you will have an opportunity to make your email available to networking so that we can continue the conversation. There will be a follow-up email for evaluation and so forth. Team, did I forget anything?
You have a printed list at the bottom of your dance card.
I did forget things. Have a great afternoon.